Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. This is Patrick, and I'm really happy that you've joined us this morning. And I'm also happy to announce that we have a customer who's going to be discussing his migration from SharePoint On Prem to SharePoint Online today. I'm really happy to introduce Richard Sahadi of Prestonwood. And Richard, can you hear me okay?
Yes. How do I sound?
You sound great. Thanks for being here. Just before we switch to Richard and talk about his migration and show all the wonderful demos and work that he's done, I'd like to quickly just review what we're talking about today. We're talking about migrating forms from InfoPath to FormsViewer, whether that be on-prem or online. I've got one quick poll for you before we get started here. I just remembered I'm going to launch this. This is just a quick question to see where you're at. So you've got a couple options here. The question is, are you planning a forms migration? Yes, yes, no, but maybe in the future, and we already did it. So if you could quickly answer that poll, hopefully you can see it. If not, I guess we will continue, but it looks like, yes, we've got a response. Great. So that's great to hear. Looks like a couple of you are in the yes category. That's great. So this is just kind of to get our heads around where what we're talking about today. So I'll close down that poll. I think I did that correctly. Okay, it's closed. And back to the slides then. So why are we talking about Qdabra Forms? Well, we have the lowest cost solution out there to migrate your InfoPath forms, but it's also a very feature-rich solution because it takes your forms as is, without a huge amount of modification, and lets you move those to the future, which means adding new UI. You'll see this today, integrating with team sites, doing other things that are useful in today's modern web. And we also support access for external users. And we just finished training on this literally last week. And we didn't do a broadcast of the training class because we were worried we'd get too many people. But it's available now for you to take a look at. In fact, this is the course directory form that we included in class, which has videos to view the days we recorded, all the labs we did. We did a bunch of new things. In fact, if you're curious about just getting an idea of what was new, you can click on this "What's New" up in the right-hand corner here, and you can see a bunch of Jiffy clips and a few short videos on the new topics. So this is just new from last April. So we continue to do new things in these classes. I'm going to paste a link into the chat here for everyone. And that link is to you can access this form externally and download the content. And hopefully that link will come through in the chat window there. Hopefully I sent it to everyone. Maybe not. Let me try that again. And when you click on this link, you'll get this screen here, which will prompt you to log in. So if you have not registered, you need to click sign up and then enter your first name, last name, your phone number, which we encrypt, and then you can log in. And it's going to either SMS text message you a number to confirm your authenticate you to confirm your identity, or it's going to, if you're using the Authy app, you can enter that number. And I'm just using the Authy app. And so once you enter the numbers, assuming you do so correctly, then you can access the form remotely, externally, even though you don't have access to our site. So just a quick comment up front there about that. So I'm just going to quickly switch. This is a topology slide. We have another one too that's a little more advanced, but just if you're wondering how FormsViewer works and how it's designed, there's a few slides here with some information that we'll make available after the webinar. We have a short 3-question survey at the end. We'll send this stuff out. But the main purpose of this webinar today is really to hear Richard's story. And Richard, I'd like to welcome you again. And I'm going to actually give you the presenter baton here, and just I'll stop talking.
Great. Let's see. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Patrick, for allowing me this opportunity to just kind of share my testimony with you. Share my screen now. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, so I work at Prestonwood Baptist Church, and it's a pretty, bigger church in Plano, Texas, about 30,000 members, and we have about 2 campuses. And back in 2014, we launched our first intranet on a SharePoint 2013 on-premises setup, and it was pretty exciting at the time. And so over that the next couple of years, we created about 40 InfoPath forms, including a purchase order and check request system. And so around 2019, we started to look around for a SharePoint, for an InfoPath forms replacement, because we sort of got in on the back end of InfoPath when it started. And so we looked at a lot of different, we spent several months looking for different replacements. We looked at Nintex and Power Apps and several other solutions. And I'm a very low code user myself, so that was one of the requirements. And so then we discovered Forms Viewer, and we were familiar with Qdabra in the past because we were actually using some of their plugins in InfoPath. And so we started researching Forms Viewer and testing it out, and it was the only solution that met all of our requirements. And we had a lot of requirements because we're we have a really robust purchase order system, and we wanted to be in full control and be able to customize the form and the dashboard the way without what's the word I'm looking for?
Writing a lot of code.
Without compromise, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's really great to hear. Right? Even though we have a dearth of marketing, we don't tell anybody about us, but you found us anyway. Thanks for that, Richard.
Yeah, so we have about 50 forms, and we actually started our migration to SharePoint Online about 3 months ago. We did the switch about 3 months ago, and so we basically migrated everything over except for our forms sites. And so our plan was to basically just migrate each form over one at a time. And I've been working on that now for about 2 months, and I've got about 17 forms migrated, and everything's going really well. I was kind of scared about migrating all these forms really quickly and waiting for things to explode, but there really hasn't been any explosions. Just there's been a couple of issues here and there, and every time I've had an issue that I couldn't figure out, I would just email support, and there would be somebody there that would come through for me. And I just can't, I can't say enough good things about their support. And the people at my job, they think I'm the Jedi of the intranet, but I'm like C3PO when it comes to your guys. They're the Jedis. I'm like a little, nothing.
Well, I don't know. I feel like R2D2. If you say C3PO, I feel like R2D2 sometimes.
Yeah. And so we actually have about 250 users, and
forgot to update that slide for some reason. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, and so this is a slide of what our previous purchase order form used to look like. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is this is the new one. So yeah, this slide. It's if you can. It's got a lot of CSS added to it, and it has responsive views. So where right now it's you're viewing it in the fields in 2 columns, and depending on what type of device you're in, like if you're on an iPhone, it will collapse down to 1 column.
Do you want to show the before and after? Do you want to switch?
I will in just a minute. And so this is our new check request form. And so this is an example of what it looks like on an iPhone. And yeah, so do you want me to, before we go any further, do you want me to kind of show you the forms, or the before and after kind of a thing?
I mean, whatever you think is useful for the listeners. But yeah, it certainly would be great to see the forms live. In fact, sure, yeah. Opening them and seeing the performance and all that stuff.
Yeah, why don't we get into that a little bit? Yeah, so this is an example of what our old form used to look like. So our purchase order, our old purchase order system and the check request system, they were 2 different forms, 2 different dashboards. They actually shared the same type of approval routing. They shared a lot of the same fields, but so we wanted, and here's the check request form. So POs are blue, checks request green. We wanted when we went to Forms Viewer, or took this form to Forms Viewer, we wanted a way to be able to combine these 2 forms into 1 template, yet be able to kind of differentiate between the 2 with colors. And so we were, so Forms Viewer was able to deliver on that. And there was also this feature on our PO and check request dashboard. This is the old one. That we had this quick approval view. And what this is, it's a separate list that, so if you have a form that's pending your approval, this list is syncing, has a list item that's syncing to a corresponding item in the form library. And so it has these buttons that you can approve or reject the form from the dashboard. And so like if you're in the finance department, you'll have about 20 of these a day to approve or reject. And it just saves a lot of time, so you don't have to open each form and approve it from within the form. And but the issue that we had with this is because it was a separate list, there were synchronization issues from time to time, and so it wasn't always as reliable as we wanted it to be. And so we asked Qdabra if they could help us develop a new dashboard that would eliminate the need for that separate list. And so let me show you this is what the new dashboard looks like. And so it's got the check requests in green and the purchase orders all combined into 1 dashboard. And so it defaults into the My Approvals tab. And so these are all the items that are pending my approval. And so these column headers up here are actually buttons that you can click on. They're I guess we call them smart filters. And so if I wanted to filter like the vendor by Apple test. So it can filter by any of these columns, and then if you want to just reset, you just click right there and it resets it. And we have a search box that works really good. And so we also have a My Purchase Orders tab that shows all the requests that I've submitted, My Check Request tab. And then we have an accounting tab that it's hidden only to the finance department. And so, so these are all of the open requests. Starts off with the check requests, and then a little bit further down.
That's a lot of data.
We've got yeah, it is a lot of data, and we're kind of, we're still in the process of maybe adding some paging to this.
But you can search this too, right? You can go in and
Yes.
search it.
So like if I wanted to type, I don't know, golf, I think we have a golf classic thing here. Let's see here.
I'm really happy to see that we've got the performance looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's a lot better. So yeah, if it brings up a new tab for your search results, and so we can click here on a form item to open it up. But let me actually go back to the My Approvals, and I completely forgot to show the quick approval feature. If I want to approve something from the dashboard, I can just click here on that checkbox, and then I get these nifty approve and deny buttons to approve that item, or I can click up top and select all the items and approve all of them at once.
Oh, wow, that saves some time on that.
Yeah, so that was a priority to get that that feature. So and that's working really well. And so we've been using this. I think we've been using it about 2 months now, and so we're constantly making new updates to it and customizations, and Qdabra has done a fantastic job at helping us with the speeds, loading the dashboard and the forms. And so we have up here at the top a new purchase order, new check request. So let me just show you. If you click on that,
you're in Safari too, which is a little bit challenging from a performance perspective, because Safari isn't quite as snappy as Chrome. Or maybe you are using.
Yeah, we have a lot of Mac users, and that was another issue, just finding a form solution that would support Safari, that would support the iPhone, and we have a lot of different platforms that we have to support. And
it may not be. This is great, Rich. I just want to jump in and just say one thing about that dashboard, is that the dashboard actually is a form. So this is a great example of how you can use the Forms Viewer, Forms Designer to create views, not just creating data input, data collection forms, but also views on top of those data processes.
Mm-hmm.
You feel comfortable that you can actually go in there and make custom changes, right?
Some. I'm kind of new to CSS, and some of the changes that you make may require some CSS to make it consistent with everything else. So I've made some changes, and what I can't do, there's always someone there to help us. So
not me. It would be a Jedi Knight like Hillary or Jimmy or Don or Mel. Great. Yeah, this looks wonderful. The CSS, I mean, you could have one consistent CSS with your styling, your font selection, and kind of reuse that. It's only when you have to change the column numbers or something like that where you really need to get in there, right?
Right. So yeah, so they did a really good job making this look up to date, and so I'm really happy with it. And so if you collapse this, it goes down to one column.
That's the CSS right there.
Yeah.
And are people using their mobile phones? Are they using their iPhones to fill out stuff?
They're using them to approve it, mainly. A lot of it's mainly the secretaries that are filling out the forms, and so a lot of them are just doing that from their desk. But a lot of the approving happens from a phone. their managers and that sort of thing, or the ministers are doing that from their phone.
We could even add like a text messaging facility with a one-click link. If they click it within, I don't know, 10 minutes of getting it, then we can kind of do an automatic approval because we're just sending it to them, right? They type in their phone number, the SMS text number. There's some ways we might be able to automate that even further.
Yeah. There was something else that I was just thinking of. We on our website we have these in our church organization. We have members that get nominated as deacons, and if you're familiar with what a deacon is, or there's depending on your denomination, it means different things. But for us, it's like a member leader, and so we have the church congregation nominates members to be deacons, and so there was an issue on our website. We had it was a non-forms viewer form that was set up for members to fill out and nominate people, and so there were some submissions that were submitted that were kind of like trolling because it's all anonymous. And so I was thinking about getting with our web designer about using Forms Viewer to do to use Authy for that. And with Authy, we could have members submit deacon nominations, but have them submit it in a way that they're not exactly anonymous. That way we can control those those people that want to troll us a little bit. So
we can have them enter our codes, and that Authy or Twilio, they track all the different accesses, so you'll have a full audit of when they accessed it and when they didn't.
Yeah. So I'm going to get with our web designer about that.
Okay. Let's go back to the slides real quick and just try to wrap up with some quick comments. We're trying to keep this to a short format, and I really appreciate your time today, Richard. It's just wonderful that you guys are up and running and that process wasn't too painful. So I guess you had these extra features that we didn't have with InfoPath, just to talk about. You've already mentioned the dashboard, but I guess we didn't show validation, did we? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the validation I'm just really happy with. It's so much more intuitive than what InfoPath had to offer. Can you kind of show that? Let's see. Yeah, this is our intranet homepage and our forms page, and I'm just going to go to one of our newer forms here. Let's see. And so I'll just open up a new request. Okay, and let's see. Let's see, fill out.
This is the old one, right?
Actually, this is the new one. Hang on one. Let's see if I can type here. I've just got to get the submit button to show up. There we go. Okay, so if there's a lot of required fields up here that I haven't filled out, obviously, and so if I hit submit, it's not going to submit, and I've got these, very detailed, error listings, validation listings here that give the name of the field and exactly what you need to do before you can continue. And so we've got 8 errors. So if I fill out some of these and then try it again, it refreshes. Now I've got 6 errors, and this gets smaller.
Nice.
So, yeah, it worked.
We need to get CSS working on this form, the personnel form.
What's that?
We need to get CSS working for this guy so it looks as modern as the other ones.
Yeah, we can do that. So
How much effort was required to move this form? Because you did this one on your own, totally without any help from us. What was required in terms of hours to get it working in Forms here?
okay, so the whole thing, I'm talking form and dashboard and migrating the libraries over. It was about 3 days, I would say, without any interruptions.
And
So
that's for one form, or is that for like one library or one site, or?
Basically for one form, dashboard, site, permissions, and yeah, the
validation.
a lot of yeah, adding the validation, kind of giving the form a fresher look. You know, this does have CSS on it for the font. Then there's also a lot of my forms have a debug section, that's been really handy.
I should add that to the slide.
I can show that on this form here. So we have debug sections on a lot of our forms. And that's something that we didn't really have in InfoPath. That's a new feature with Qdabra. So we can add all these fields in that debug section, and you know, obviously it helps us troubleshoot. And
yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Yeah, let's go through. Do you mind if I share up my slides again and just quickly go through this, try to wrap up here? Okay, so thank you so much for those demos. Really, like I said, really happy that you're able to tell us, walk through and show us this wonderful demo, and that you guys have had success. I mean, there was lots of different pieces to the puzzle, right? You had MetaLogics for your migration, the content, and then you use that to move the data over first, right? And then use FormsViewer for the InfoPath piece, and then here are some steps for people watching this. I guess we've got a bunch of steps for migrating the forms. You can see them here. You know, adding the FormsViewer app, that was pretty quick, and then creating the main dashboards using the classic pages, and of course with that new dashboard you've got, you could run that on modern probably. There's some other steps in here, but you're like you said, it was about 3 days. That's wonderful that it didn't take very much time per form.
Yeah, it's going a lot quicker than we expected. So
one of the issues that you encountered was the forms were slow to open. It looks like they're within the range that we expect now, the 3 to 5 seconds for online. You know, obviously, if you're trying to tab through fields, we expect that to be relatively instantaneous. And I guess the common culprits for slowness is, you know, querying a lot of data, displaying a lot of data. You've got a lot of calculations in your form. And here are some tips for people who are seeing this, just to go back to later. We can help you debug it. There's some new commands, this write log command, which we just launched in QRules, I should say FormsViewer 6.2, which was deployed last month to the production version in the US, and we have on-prem customers now installing this. But you can use a write log command to add details and see where the performance is slowing down. And then for I think in your case, we ended up changing the way we were querying to lazy evaluate or lazy load, delay load. What's the right word? And that was a key culprit, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, so that's a lot better.
Great. Well, thanks again, everyone, for being here. I really want to thank Richard also again, because it's just wonderful to have these customer testimonials. We're going to be doing a few more over the next month, and look forward to having you here. If you have any questions, now would be a great time to ask. We had one person already ask a question. Thanks, Daniel, for that question there. I'll just repeat that for the audience, that you're wondering if we have our own, does Qdabra have the own design environment, dev environment? Now, we just launched Forms Designer in April of this year, and we've actually updated it with the training last week. In fact, the training class covered Forms Designer in detail. On day 4 was all Forms Designer. You can look at these videos. If you go back to the What's New page, you've got 4 short, literally 5-minute videos here showing techniques on Forms Designer. You can take a look at those. These are videos you can just download from our share site. And then in day 1 and day 2, we also demoed Forms Designer. Let me just have you installed the Forms beta app, Richard, on your online stuff?
I don't think so.
We'll have to get that installed for you so you can start using Forms Designer. We're basically in sprint 15 after the April release, and we're pushing hard to get the 1.0 out, and which is going to be hopefully by the end of Q1. 1.0, what does that mean? It means feature parity with InfoPath Designer. Now, some things like digital signatures, which don't work in the browser so well, are tough to do. But we've got some workarounds for that and some ideas for people who are more interested in those esoteric features. There are ways to do that using other new technologies that are web-based. I'm just going to quickly show Forms Designer, I think, for Daniel's benefit here, since you asked the question, Daniel. And I think we can do it from here. I've got an expense report demo. And when you install the Forms beta app, it's going to look like FormsYer, but you're going to have this extra design button here. You got the legacy designer. So we had an alpha version of the designer environment before April, which didn't include modifying the view, but now we've got the ability to edit the canvas and do a lot of other things. And this is the designer that we demoed in the training class. You can see here's the expense report form. And this is, you can see at the bottom here, we can define SharePoint mappings. This form has some mappings already. So I think you're using this SharePoint mapping for when you do your quick approval from the dashboard there. I think that's what it's doing. It's mapping to a list, right? Maybe. And then there's some other things, data connections, prone properties. So it's relatively feature rich at this point, but we've got we got more things to do. Obviously, we're going to be adding more XTPs to make it easy to modify your form. Dynamic data connections is something we recommend for all the forms, so you can make your forms work in one environment and the other one without having to change the form. So there's going to be a bunch of new features here coming in the next month or two for common things that you want to add, like the CSS, the Authy for external users and things like that. So that's a quick demonstration of the Forms Designer. I can make a quick change here. You can see I've got my Omicron demo here. I don't know why I was doing that. Hopefully Omicron, however you say it, is not affecting you. You can go in here and change this to be something. So we'll just show this change round tripping. This is fully round trippable to InfoPath Designer. So if you find it, like you find something that's missing here in the designer, you can always export it and go back into InfoPath Designer and then make the change and then upload it again, and it will round trip 100%. We're very careful about that because we want to give people the option of using both. Now, this is just showing the form opening after I saved it with that one very minor change, changing that Omicron to webinar. And this, once again, the CSS here is making this a little more responsive. We've got this debug section at the bottom and so on. Okay, any questions? Any more questions for Richard or me? Well, I want to thank everyone again for being here, and we hope you can make it next week. We're going to be doing another webinar next week. We're going to be talking about actually how to scale images. So if you've got a lot of attachments, large files, we'll show you how to do validation for the file size. To say, hey, you've got 10 megabyte file, please don't attach it. We also have scaling for images. So if you've got a lot of images and you want to auto scale them, we have a new technique. We've done this webinar with the auto scale feature, which is called alter image in FormsYer before, many years ago. Tomorrow we're adding to it and showing you a clever technique that will automatically scale a whole bunch of images. If you've added 10 or 20 images to a form, you can auto scale them all. Kind of like when you're sending an email from your phone, it pops up and says, hey, small, medium, or large. we'll show you that next week. Hope you can make it. Once again, I want to thank Richard and Prestonwood for agreeing to do the testimonial today. I really appreciate the wonderful comments you made, Richard, and I hope we look forward to serving you in the year ahead. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks everybody for taking the time to listen.
Have a great day, everyone.